half of um, my customers coming from the U.S. for many years, and I had sprinkling of people coming from Europe because I had been going to conventions. So I had a lot of people coming from Europe, and I had a few people, like I had someone come from Tel Aviv once. I had someone come from Australia or New Zealand. Can't remember now. And many other places. Um, yeah, life was quite grand, but I was still working through this anxiety um, thing, and I managed it and I worked through it, and to a large um, amount, my tattooing helped me because I might be rough and raw from a horrible night, not sleeping properly and fears coming up. It was just weird, like fears that just seem to come from nowhere. And it's like, why do I have these? Almost like fear of unknown stuff that just came and haunted me and things. And it was easy to get into all kinds of stuff like why, when I'm doing my best, I'm trying to do this, why would I get this, that whole type of storyline that comes with it. But my tattoo practice, I believe, pulled me through that because when I get to the studio with the client I had for that day, I would just put myself fully into that client. It didn't completely erase the anxiety, but it took it down many notches to a manageable level. And I would just put all my love into that person that was needing it. And I could feel, that's one thing. I'm a real empath, which is, I think, also why I also get so raw at times. I take on too much. But yeah, I remember one time we had this a party planned that night in Cabbagetown, our place in Cabbagetown, Ontario Street. But we still had the tattoo studio up the road one block on Carlton before we moved it into the house. And I had a client who came up many times from San Francisco. I haven't heard or seen from him for 20 years, I think. It sounds weird, but I miss a lot of people that I don't see after. But I won't mention names, but I miss this person a lot. They were a great person, great being, great soul. But they were a undercover narcotics detective from the San Francisco area, and I'd had them over a few times, and I really felt really connected with them, and Raven did too. And I said, "Oh, we're having this party. If you want to come before you go back to your hotel," and I was like, "Yeah, I'd be into that." And they came to the party, and it was a great party. And a few people offered my client a joint, and my client just graciously, politely, you know, said no, thank you. And I remember to one person that I knew really, really well. Then a couple of days later, I saw them, and I said, "Oh, you know that person that you so and so." I described them. And I said, "Do you remember offering a joint to that person?" They said, "Yeah." And then they politely refused and said, "Yep." I said, "Well, that was an undercover narcotics detective from San Francisco." And they're like, "What?" And I said, "Relax. They're from San Francisco." Um, yeah, I have a lot of good memories. I have good memories about a guy who started all the um, way cool tattoo shops. There's a whole chain of them. And at the time, it's like that was the opposite of what I did. So without even knowing this big bikery looking guy with all these tattoos everywhere and stuff on his face, really rough looking dude, I just thought he was the opposite end of the spectrum, so we just sort of became sort of silent enemies or something. And not enemies, but you know, didn't want to know each other, sort of thing. And then one day, this is an amazing story to me, anyways. So there's this big rough guy that I thought was the opposite, the antithesis of what I was trying to do. And almost like I don't know. I'm just it was a thought, but Crazy Ace Daniels. He passed away quite a while back. Bless his soul. Um, but we became really good friends, and the way it happened was, and he was the better person. He came to me, booked an appointment for a tattoo, and he had this little skull right beside his eye on his temple, one side. And he said, "I'd like you to cover this up with your energy wave patterns." So I was nervous a bit, but I also was enjoying this moment. So I designed something, drew it on him, and said, "Well, have a look in the mirror just before I go ahead with it." And he said, "No, I trust you." And it was that moment, that was all it took for this big burly dude from a chain of tattoo parlors who comes to me for something to be covered up on his face and then says, "I trust you." And it just dissolved everything. And I wasn't even sure what I was feeling. It was something else. But that was a healing moment for me because I realized that I kind of projected things onto him and just assumed. So anyways, slowly, gradually, we became really good friends. Our friendship developed between us and me and Raven and him. And I had lots of amazing events that happened over time. But the one that I thought of that I'm just building to was at one of our parties. Ace was there, and he was telling us a story about how he left home when he was 13 and he worked with a traveling circus, like the stories you'd hear in the old days. Like that's something else, you think about it. Leaving at 13 and striking out in the world. But anyways, the story that he told really stuck in my mind. It outdid anyone's first job stories. A difficult job. But his job, among others, he was a stable boy. But his job, this little, or not so little, I don't know, 13-year-old, his job, one of his jobs was he had to stick his arm up to his shoulder, up an elephant's butt, and scoop out any poop so that they wouldn't poop on the stage, on the whatever, when they're doing the show. And I'm like, holy shit, I didn't even know that job existed. And Ace, you outdid everyone. That was a story. So, you may see people around you, or not around you, but somewhere else, and you may think that you wouldn't like them or they're not a savory person or something, because that's what I thought about Ace. I was certain I knew him through and through. But he turned out that he was such a wonderful guy if you didn't get on his bad side. He had a very protective, defensive side, and I'm sure he had some rough times where maybe he wasn't as likable. But I guess in his older age, he was softening. I don't know. But we had some wonderful, intimate moments with him. I remember when Raven and I exploring Sufism, and we started to explore Islam. And we were going to a mosque, and we were interacting with a lot of Muslims, especially in the gay scene that we were involved in. We met up with, I'm just not going to mention names right now. I'm sure that they wouldn't mind, but I'm not going to mention names just out of respect. Did a tattoo on this wonderful gay man who is Muslim, who now is an imam. proud of that guy. He's something else. He's a immigrations lawyer by trade. But we did a lot of cool stuff with him, including sitting around, taking turns doing shifts with his partner, his lover, his partner, who was dying of an AIDS-related illness. The letters I still remember were PML, because he tried to make, just sort of be jovial about it. And when he found out what it was, when things started to get worse, and he said, "Oh, I thought they said pea meal." Like, he even tried to make fun of it then. It was such a sweet guy. But yeah, I have been blessed. I have gotten to know so many different people, and I've gotten to love so many different people, and be in so many different communities, welcomed and invited, and be a part of so many communities that many people would have shied away from, or just not some way computed, or just missed that whole part of reality. So I'm really thankful for everything I've gone through in my life, and what I've been able to share, and most of all, how the soul print has developed the experience, and along with my ability to perform that healing experience, I guess, pass on, or transmute, transmit, all kinds of words that fit for different aspects of it. But I've had so many people sit in my chair for hundreds of hours in some cases. Other times just 6 hours or 3 hours or 20 hours, but usually long-term sits, and quite often with very intense experiences and baggage that they've brought with them for healing. Some of those people don't talk to me anymore after the whole lockdown things. Many do. It's kind of how this whole series was dreamed up, was for those who think they know me. Because I think people, all of us, we form a sense of that we know someone, and they're this or they're that. And if they don't fit, especially if they don't try to fit, but if they don't end up fitting that idea, then people kind of drop off and form judgments. I do it myself. But yeah, so that's how this all developed, was just reactions that I got over the last year from some of my posts. And at this point I thought, maybe just revealing truly who I am as I go through whatever it is that I'm going through at that time, but also sharing my past, stories about my past. But I also want to share, when I have the time, start sharing, like go through photographs. I've got a whole batch that I found during the move that I want to just go through and maybe just hold them up to the camera, as well as post a whole bunch. I'll still, I'll just see how it unfolds. But I want to share a lot with you guys. And I really believe, this is not arrogance, but I really believe for those of you that follow, there's a lot in store for you. And I'm hoping more than just the indulgence in cool stories, but there's a lot of meaning that I think will come together for you in witnessing my story, if I'm courageous enough to tell it with enough authenticity and not leave out certain necessary things, or else you don't get the bigger picture as it unfolds. Then they're just little stories and things, whatever. So that's kind of my intentions, and this is about as far as, more or less, as far as I'm going to go on this video, which will probably be broken into, I see it says something like 53 minutes, I think. So it'll probably be broken into two. But yeah, there's there's a very deep reason to why I'm sharing what I'm sharing in this series. And, please follow along, even if you get the odd piece that I share. I don't know, whatever you want. But for those that feel they want to, there's a lot in store that you have no idea. As this unfolds, you'll be getting a much bigger picture, because there's very few people that have been around through everything that Urban Primitive has been. And then even for those people, they've missed out on certain things. So I'm going to try and fill in the blanks for everyone. And hopefully some of it will help others, to understand me, but that's not the point. It's I'm hoping something else will come out of it anyways, me sharing this, because I definitely have lived one hell of a very different life. And one of the things that I want to show is that I have been consistent. I've always gone against certain flows when I've seen that there's something that isn't jiving. And most of the time it's a subculture, but I've grown a subculture that's followed Urban Primitive as it's evolved and grown, and some have dropped away and some new have come. And so different phases, people get different aspects of Urban Primitive and of Damon and of Raven. But hopefully by sharing all this, you'll see that life has changed, and what we do seems to have changed drastically. I mean, middle of the city, Urban Primitive, the name itself, doing ball dances and going to S&M parties and things. And now, 30 years later, I'm living in the forest. Forbidden to tattoo, forbidden to do that which I have developed over so many years and I have put my heart and soul into. It's a lifestyle, it's a healing modality, it's a job, it's a way to earn my living, it's so many things. It's a way to share time and space intimately with people in a different way. And it's very difficult for me. It's not just the money. It's so much more that I have cut off from the rules saying that I am not an essential service. And I just find the arrogance of that for someone else to decide what's essential just blows my mind, the arrogance involved. But I don't want to dwell on that, because it's just, I can feel myself winding up. It's very, very important, I feel, to not, anyone to not get slotted into victim mode, because your mind will start to play games and things. It's so important to not go there, and that's why I thank the universe constantly, daily. I show my gratitude for everything that happens, even if it's something that seems like it's happened to me and it's a horrible thing and it causes pain. I know and I believe and I trust. Part of me does. There's other parts that come kicking and screaming. I believe that there's always God, whatever you want to call it, the library angel, your guide, whatever, your higher self is watching over you. And if you can providing you can tune in with and keep working on that connection with your higher self, which winds in with the soul print, there's a healing aspect to it, because you're realigning and creating balance, bringing back balance that was not there. and wholeness. So you're becoming a larger, more infinite self rather than a finite little fearful self. And there, the word fearful just triggered me. What's going on in the world? Well, fear is, whether intentionally or not, negligence or otherwise, leave that to anyone else to decide. But I'm not going to point fingers. But the amount of fear that is spread over the world right now is not healthy. It is not good for our soul. And even for those of us that feel like we've done quite well, believe me, you are not in the same wholeness that you could be with this much placed upon you. And I'm not arguing, as I said in my other videos. You guys decide whether it was manufactured, real, not real, this, that, the other thing, billions of things. It doesn't matter. It's how things are being dealt with globally is, in my opinion, pathetic and horrible and beyond pathetic. Pathetic is just when it's someone who doesn't know what they're doing. But let's just say if there are those that are devious, I believe there are many different forms. Some just out for what they can get. Oh, I can make some money in this situation, on other people's demise. But yeah, this is when the nastiness comes out in humanity, but also where the wonderful comes out. And I want to focus on the wonderful. But something's got to shift soon, folks. Something has got to shift big time soon. And I am putting every ounce of my energy into intending for that shift to happen for the better. Because this is not a good place that we're being held in. It's not healthy, to not be able to share time and laughter and events with people, family, communities, whatever. I mean, the whole reason that I moved out here was to be able to have the space for people to come for the tattoo experience, because it'd be more of a pilgrimage. And I can go into that one another episode too. That's a really good one about the pilgrimage aspect that I noticed when my clients that were traveling from another part of the world, their experience had a little bit of a difference to it because of that. And I noticed, wow, if I could get it symbolically, at least to some degree, where everyone has a little bit of that stepping out of their comfort zone, there's something more that goes on in this healing. And I had already been working on the environment that people would come into and my attitude and so on. But I realized that there's so much further I could take this for people's healing experiences. Because things happen to people. And right now, more people are going to need the soul print healing experience from Nomad than ever before. But it isn't going to happen until it can happen. But the amount of trauma that the world has been put through is just insane. So yeah, I anticipate, if I could train a handful of tattoo artists to be ready, sort of thing. That's how I feel, and then just spread them out everywhere. So I'd have tattoo artists able to provide this experience for people who can't come out this far. And also, frankly, I can't and I don't want to work 24 hours a day like I used to either. Those were those days. I want to work also on my other soul print portal work. And then when I say portal, I mean an opening into another something. And in my case, in these cases, ones that are preferable portals for expansion, for anything. I mean, there are as many portals as you can invent the idea of. It's just a way into something that otherwise is blocked. It could be another dimension, it could be another reality, it could go that far, but it could be more subtle as well. You know, portals are open for healing. Like my my doors, church door portal. That's a powerful one because it even has that, you know, that the doors themselves have always been symbolic of a portal. My medicine polar bear skull portal, all unfinished because of the situation and stuff, but they will be completed soon once I get electricity and things mellow out a bit here, and I know that I've got this trailer ready for winter and got a bit of work to do. But I do want to get I think the first thing I want to get done is my mailbox, for the practical reason, but also some of you have heard I'm working on a phoenix mailbox, because that is the symbol of what has started Nomad. You know, Urban Primitive sort of got turned into ashes in the flames, but still lives on through Nomad in a different form, like a reincarnation, you might say. So nothing's been forgotten or left behind, but there's a new form, Nomad, which is, many people know, is Damon pronounced backwards. And it's as much traveling on the external, which most people would think of, but it's as much, I should say, traveling on the internal realms, in the internal realms, as it is on the external. So nomadic within, and the being willing to travel, not be fixed in like a petrified log or something. You know, to stay green, to stay supple, to face your fears and work through them for more wholeness. It's an invitation to people to not get stuck in a rigid form, you know, of what society wants of you, to be brave enough to be yourself. And that's another aspect of, I'm hoping will come through in this, is just encouragement and offering people support and ideas in being themselves, because there's a large energy in what's going on that just wants people to conform under the name of safety, whatever. It's like conform, go against who you really are for the safety, you know, whatever it is. It's not a healthy thing, and there's no one that doesn't realize that now. How they interpret it's another thing, but everyone is starting to realize this is not good for us. And now I'm hearing stories that Ford is suggesting that we're going to be in lockdown again till December, and then of course in December, guess what he's going to say? And if people don't start to see that there is an aspect to this that is to break us down, more people are starting to see it now. And I'm not going to say why, and I'm not going to say it's all planned or even that is planned, but there is an aspect that wants to break us down into conformity. And if you're a history buff, you already know. But you want to go through history, the examples of this stuff happening repeated throughout history, it is over and over and over again. So that's an aspect that I could say to people that say, well, how can that possibly be? There's no way this, no way that. Why would it stop now? These things have happened throughout history. Controllers, they get too powerful and too greedy and feel their reality perception is the most important. Anyways, I don't want to go into too much of that, because it's important to keep the positive side of things. I believe to end this, I'll just say I believe, I can just see the sun starting to poke through the trees. I believe that we are heading towards the most wonderful awakening worldwide. I believe it's going to happen. I believe that it may not happen potentially, but I'm trusting that it will. But it is going to depend on everyone and how much they pull their own weight. And that depends, like you might say, well, I don't even know what I'm supposed to do. Well, if you look deep within yourself and develop that wholeness within yourself and with that higher self, God, whatever you want to call it, start to communicate and show your gratitude for the little things, and smile and say hi to a person you walk by on the street, even if they're looking glum. We all need emotional support right now. And the only way we're going to get it is if we start giving it to others. And then they start to warm up and give it to us. We need to gain confidence in humanity again. I think we've all been shaken. And we're all tired of being in opposition as well. So I think we're at 1 hour and 10 minutes or so. So I think it's going to be just about time for me to say goodbye on this little video and hello for the next one. I hope everyone has a wonderful day. It's still early in the morning, I'm sure.